Hi, I'm Devin Moore, your host for Humanity Rising's Race to Speak Up podcast and founder of hashtag Race to Speak Up, an anti-bullying organization. The Race to Speak Up podcast is a place where we have open and engaging conversations about bullying prevention, how to be upstanders, and how we are making a positive change in our communities. So the question now is, how do you race to speak up? Hello and welcome to the Race to Speak Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Devin Moore. Today's guest is Jaylen Arnold. Jaylen has been sharing his leadership for the past 13 years in classrooms, in the community, and all across the United States and the United Kingdom. Jaylen is the inspiration of Jaylens Challenge Foundation. He created the concept at the age of 8 after being bullied for having Tourette's syndrome and autism. He decided to take a bold stand. With the help of a few adults, he created a plan to educate students and the public about the prevalence of kindness and respect in schools and workplaces across the globe. It was soon realized that it was a plague that reached much further than his disorders and that children and adults alike were suffering on a daily basis. With his motto, bullying no way, anchoring his movement, he set out to change the world one person at a time by spreading awareness and education. He believes the more we understand each other, the more we will love the differences we have and the similarities we share. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Jaylen at the 2019 CLC Give a Little award ceremony. Let me tell you guys, this was a great night. Jaylen actually
Yes.
introduced me and presented me with my TLC award. Jaylen received his the year before. Thank you for joining us today, Jaylen. It's so great to catch up with you and for you to be a guest on my podcast.
Hi. No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Jaylen, would you like to tell us more about your story and how that led you to Jalen's Challenge?
Yeah, sure. So when I was little, I had been diagnosed practically since birth with Tourette syndrome, which is my involuntary mental disorder, in which I completely have no control over my body or the sounds that I make. Pretty much, ever since I was a kid, I would just roll my eyes or or make really weird sounds in the school environment. And that caused me to be bullied, as you could imagine, because the disorder is actually pretty rare. And these kids had no idea how to interact with someone like me. And so they resorted to bullying. And it was tough. It was tough for a long time because I suffered in silence and I was too scared to speak up for myself. And I was too scared as to what those results would be. Once I had grown out of that phase of being bullied, I had realized how much of an issue this actually is worldwide, not just for me, and that there's so many different disabilities and reasons and stories of this harassment in school. And so that made me want to really speak up and be a voice for the kids who are too scared to speak like I was.
And do you want to tell us more about Jalen's Challenge?
Yes. So as a result of my bullying, I had created Jaylens Challenge Foundation at the age of 8 years old. Me and my mom had pretty much we just made a website, and originally it was simply a vlog for me to share my experiences and to reach out to other kids who may have um, stories that were similar and close to mine. And we decided to make it a nonprofit just so that we could get the word out and spread the message of kindness and goodness and ending bullying in schools. And we ended up picking up so much traction that schools were asking us to come and speak to their student body. And that just led to a whole whirlwind of things. And I could have never seen it going as far as Jalen's Challenge has come, but we've loved every second of being able to reach out to these kids through so many different platforms and just share our story.
Well, Jaylen, first I want to say I'm sorry to hear what you went through. I can understand that it's very hard. I can't personally I just want to say I'm very sorry to hear what you went
Yes,
through.
it's no problem.
I mean, we both understand the importance of advocacy and speaking up against bullying. Bullying can't be ignored and bullying can't be swept under the rug. Can you share some stories that kids talk to you about?
So many. My favorite part of assemblies is actually hearing either in person, the kids will come up to me after and tell me the stories they've went through, or they'll email us. The most impactful one I have ever experienced was one where we keep the student's name anonymous, but I nicknamed her Rose. because it was really, really, really close to me. She had come up to me after school, and this was a student, not my school. I was speaking at an assembly, and she came up to me after and said that she was actually planning to end her own life that day at 4 o'clock, because of the bullying that she had gone through. And that had really, really opened my eyes and just kind of stabbed me in the heart, because I think about what had happened if we hadn't spoken at that school that day, and she had told me that it had just become her bullying had become so unbearable that she had no idea what to do. And that's such a harsh reality of so many kids these days. They take such permanent solutions to such a temporary problem like bullying. But bullying is so intense in their lives and their everyday, motion that it feels like it's impossible to escape.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm very happy that, you really impacted Rose's life in a way that
Yes.
changed it. Because as far as when it comes to bullying, the victim of bullying can have a plan. Like with her,
Oh,
she had a plan,
a plan. Yeah.
her own life at 4, you said, like take her own life.
Yes.
That's terrifying. That's
Oh,
terrifying.
so scary. Yes.
How young are these kids that you talk to?
At the time, I was in middle school, so I believe she was also in middle school. It was early, maybe sixth grade, seventh.
Wow. You see, that's also another thing. When it comes to bullying, or when it really also just comes to suicide, it can also happen at any age. When it comes to, let's just start with bullying. When it comes to bullying can happen at any age. I know when it comes to like middle school, that's when people really, I always say this, that's when people really start to understand that there are differences, that we all don't look
Yes.
alike, and that's just a breeding ground for bullying. That's just when bullying starts. And anything that's outside of the norm, quote unquote norm, that's
Right.
when bullying starts. But we need to change that. And you're able to do that through, Jalen's challenge. So that's why I'm super happy to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be here because you're right. Especially middle school is when it actually like peaks in middle school because of how intense, like, just like you said, we're noticing differences about each other, and kids with no filter tend to just speak their minds and be really mean, or they'll either channel how they've been treated onto other kids. So yeah, you're just absolutely right. Middle school is really why we target that age range. So
And how often are you able to speak to kids in schools?
pre-pandemic, so many, it was so much fun. We were able to come and have face-to-face assemblies. But ever since COVID had hit, we had an unfortunate slowdown, but we were still blessed with the opportunity to come on via Zoom and speak to classes that operate that way. And that's been really, really nice, so that we've still been able to have some face time with the kids.
And I know that you actually received a very high honor a few years ago from the Princess Diana Legacy Award. What was
Yes.
that experience like to go to London and being amongst the royal family?
That was an intense experience that I would never trade for the world. Like I said, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I would have never expected, Jalen's challenge to grow into something that became internationally recognized. But we had been so blessed when someone had anonymously um, recommended us for the award, and we were nominated, completely outside of my knowledge. And when we were told that we had won and that I would be going out to the UK and meeting Prince William and Prince Harry, it was so unreal because these are figures that we learn about here in school and we see all over TV and magazines and whatnot. But it was really nice to meet them and to really feel the humanity of it, because they were very down to earth, and you can tell that their heart is really in the Princess Diana legacy. So that was a huge blessing.
And then you also received, like, this is another, you have a lot going on, Jaylen, because you also have received the your own show on Nickelodeon called The Halo Effect. And just for those who don't know what the Halo Effect is, so Halo stands for helping and leading others. So why don't you tell us about that, Jaylen?
That was also a very surreal experience that I had been blessed to have. Yeah, Nickelodeon had reached out for us because Halo Effect was a series of youth that they were highlighting, and I was chosen to be one, and they had came out to us, and it was really raw. It was really, really raw. Just throughout the span of 2 weeks, they would follow us around with a film crew and the hosts and the interviewers, and they just kind of recorded our day-to-day lives of what running a Jaylens challenge was like, and what assemblies were like, and reaching out to other people just like yourself, who are like-minded to me, and just really tracking our plan to make the world a better place. And it was really, really nice to be.
So that kind of makes me think of another question. What does your day look like? What does Jaylen's day look like?
Yes. So 2022 Jalen's day looks like getting through school because he's becoming a senior. I am becoming a senior, and I've been putting a lot of time into college. I am a film major currently, and that requires a lot of hours on set and homework, and it can become a lot. It become overbearing. So it caused me to sort of have to multitask with Jalen's challenge and school. And like I said, with COVID and everything, that slowed down our FaceTime with students, which are resuming soon, which I'm actually very excited about. I will be seeing at school very soon, and that's going to be really cool at the end of the month. So that'll be nice. But like I said before, I've been really focusing on getting my degree most off. But before, like when it was Nickelodeon, it was visiting people, it was meetings, going to the office, and planning really what our year would look like with our board of directors.
What college do you go to?
I go to Southeastern University right now.
Okay, that's cool. What exactly do you want to be when you graduate from college?
When I graduate, the sky is my limit, I like to say. I have a passion for acting right now, and I'm starting to pick up the fundamentals of producing films and creating short films and being on set, assistant directing. And I really like all of it. And I've been trying to dabble in each sort of role to see what I really like when I graduate.
That's something I like about college is the fact that we can like figure out so many different things or
Yeah.
like touch upon so many different topics and stuff. I'm not in college just yet. I I committed to the University of Maryland, so
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. I want to study psychology, although things may change. I'm just saying I'm really
Right.
interested in mental health. I think that's always really been my thing. One thing
Mhm.
as far as like when I first started my race to speak organization and was
Mhm.
speaking in front of like legislators and assembly members and senators about getting an anti-bullying law passed. I think that's why in my mind I was like, okay, lawyer Devin,
Yes.
attorney more,
Right,
but
right.
as time went on, and especially with the pandemic, and knowing that cyberbullying has increased over 70%, and like working with a psychiatrist on my behind the screen webinar, things like that really opened my eyes to mental health and knowing all these different aspects um, to like how bullying really does affect you. I think that really opened my eyes towards mental health. And it's just led me to really want to be a mental health worker, you
Hmm.
know, as like my full-time job. That's just really cool to me. I
Yeah,
think it's something I've always thought about. So, and I
absolutely.
know that you have an anti-bullying curriculum. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yes. So it's actually really, really cool. We began working on it before COVID had hit, and thank God that we did because it actually ended up being very beneficial for us. Once we visit a school, well, originally, let me give some backstory. Originally, once we had started accepting schools, it would it just began to grow kind of in supply and demand. And we were starting to realize that I can only visit so many schools, even though we were going on tours and such. There was only one of me, and I still had to get through school on my own. So once we would visit a school, or even now, I don't even have to be there for us to send them the curriculum. We get there and we have a whole pamphlet kind of thing, and it's really, really cool. And we implement the ambassador system where pretty much our students can be mini Jaylens and have many assemblies within their own school and their own clubs. And so within this anti-bullying ambassador club, they have our books and our wristbands to give out and everything that we pretty much bring to assembly. And it can become like hives, sort of, hives of kindness and love and anti-bullying, and it spreads throughout the schools. And that way, there's work being done without me having to actually physically be there.
I love that. It's so important to have anti-bullying curriculums in schools because with schools, it's just not a topic that's really talked about.
Right.
Bullying is
Right.
not
Oh
a
yeah.
topic that's really talked about, but that's why we need that anti-bullying education. I kind of
Absolutely.
want to just talk about this with you since we're on the topic of anti-bullying curriculums. So I designed an anti-cyberbullying curriculum called
Mhm.
hashtag behind the screen. which is essentially, it's really just a guide that allows for you to get a full education about cyberbullying, how to be upstanders, mental health. So it has like the different signs of bullying or cyberbullying. It has the different you can go through anxiety or paranoia or sleepless nights, and then it also has activities like conversation starters. It has activities like just putting having the class write on a note what comes to their mind when you're talking about cyberbullying, put that in
Mm,
a basket, and then the chapter lead, the hashtag behind the screen chapter lead, would just take that one of the papers out of the basket, read it, maybe even write it on the board and say, let's talk about it, let's talk about what happens
mm,
behind the screen, let's talk about
right,
what happens when the bully feels that feels that power feels that power when they're about to hurt another person. So
right, right.
that's exactly, a anti-bullying curriculum like yours and like mine. That's what we really need in schools, especially at a
Absolutely.
time like this, where, like I said, cyberbullying and just bullying in general has increased so much. And so how has the pandemic affected you?
So like I said before, it really just kind of diminished our accessibility of having the FaceTime in person with kids,
Okay.
especially around 2020, 2021, when it first like really hit strong and we were all quarantining.
Mm.
That was the biggest impact we had. But thankfully, it's like you said, cyberbullying has gone up so much, which really is terrible. But because of the technology that we have, we've been able to go full steam ahead still with our message and use these tools and these students are using as weapons and use them for good and for kindness, and it's been really good. Thankfully, we haven't taken too much of a big impact.
It's great that you're turning, something so negative as bullying into a positive through all of your work. There's so much division that's caused by negativity and hate. I mean, the
Right.
whole world, like, why don't we talk about this? The whole world witnessed George Floyd and the
Mhm.
traumatizing aftermath of it all. How did it affect you?
I mean, as an African American boy, it's been really tough to see. But at the end of the day, like you can get into all the nitty gritty and the narratives. But I think really just love is the only thing we need to spread from each other because it's only caused more division among our country, which is the last thing we need right now, especially when we're promoting, bullying no way and mental health and love. I think just the only thing we can do is spread love to each other instead of finding more reasons to divide.
Yeah, we need to show so much love to each other. We need to have open conversations like, what we're having now in order to understand where we all are standing, what are all of our opinions, and how can we come to a collective conclusion or agreement that really
Right,
allows for us to prosper and help
right,
each other and work towards that positive change.
absolutely.
So, Jalen, what do you do during your downtime?
Yeah, during my downtime. So downtime is my favorite thing. I love to just chill by myself. I listen to music. I watch movies. Because ironically, even during my downtime, I still study for my major. Because as resting as watching movies and series are, I'm still learning. Which is not to make me try to sound like some overachiever or anything. I just really that's where my passion is in life as well as the nonprofit is. So it's really cool to just be able to rest and find my center, and kind of just block out the world.
That's good. I mean, it's
around
always good to have a balance between, helping others
me.
and then
Yeah,
helping yourself.
absolutely, absolutely. What about you?
Oh, I like to watch Netflix shows. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
oh, I also just like to read. I do find
Yes.
myself reading certain books sometimes. I'm really into like science fiction, although
Oh,
more
very
so
cool.
recently I've been just reading history type of stuff.
Okay.
But that's about it because I know I like this is something I think I want to take up in college or just class as far as like learning more about African American history. That's
Yeah,
something that I
for
know
sure.
I have not been get like when I was in middle school, I didn't really get much of an education on that. And that's
Right.
because
Same.
my school was predominantly white and
Mhm.
they were not trying to educate us about something so important as, Black history. We made a huge impact. Why is this
You.
not being taught in schools? and why is so many things, or why are so many things being whitewashed? These are
Mm.
things that we need to talk about. I always say these are things that we need to talk about. And
Right.
that's why I'm like in college, I really want to learn more about that. And I just kind of am like getting I guess a feel for that now with reading books and then like talking to different activists who also focus in on like anti-racism, slavery education, and then just in general, learning about history from like oh well because now I'm in now with my high school I'm in more of a like diverse high school, so I do
Okay,
get
cool.
to touch more on certain aspects of African American history, but I want to learn a lot more about that. I want to learn more about
Yeah,
what has gone on in the past. So
right.
that's just kind of my take on things.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's so good. And I think college will be great for that too, because you get to hone in on specific things that you're actually interested in. So that'll be really, really good.
So Jaylen, as far as you having like Tourette syndrome and autism, how does that affect your day?
So I've actually become really a master, I think, at letting Tourette syndrome not really impact me too much throughout the day. But when I was young, it was really hard to get through just because of how severe my case was. Um, my Tourette's personally, it spikes in at a different time in everyone with Tourette's life. But for me, once puberty had started setting in, which was a little bit later in life, admittedly, around like 14 and 15 is when it was really, really tough for me, because there was times back when I was being bullied, my Tourette's had gotten so bad because of the negative energy that I was out put on hospital homebound, and I could not even go to school or function for months. I couldn't read, write, or even talk like how we're talking right now without a vocal tick coming and interrupting every word I had to say. And stuff like reading and writing was really tough, of course. But eventually, as I grow, the Tourette's had become more subsided, and I've become good at hiding them. But ironically, the less that I tried to hide them, the less I actually had to, if that makes sense. Like being in a community that accepts me for who I am makes my tics way less severe than they were. And so now I go to school with people who see them, but they don't even bother looking at me a second way, because they're like, oh, that's just Jay ticking. So that's become a really, really good thing for me, because my Tourette's are never good. I've never been able to escape them before, and now I don't really have to, because it's a part of who I am, and everyone accepts that.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear that you're in a very accepting environment. That's really something that we all need, just as youth who are
Yes,
growing up, who are taking in so many different things, so many different
yes,
energies, and we're just trying to figure out
absolutely.
our way through life.
Right,
Trying
literally,
to fig-
literally.
what we're trying to figure out is what we like and then also what we don't like, but still, we shouldn't have to have that negative energy.
Right, right. Because there's already so much that we're trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm. What So do you think that if people really understood autism and Tourette's more,
Yeah.
do you think that that would lead towards a more unified world as far as like for those who have those disorders or those, do you think that would lead towards a more unified world?
Absolutely. I think, like, something I say is that the lack of ignorance would lead us to a much unified world. But unfortunately, there's such a stigma around so many disabilities and behavioral issues. Like, um, people live in that ignorance kind of happily and woefully. Autism is seen as so many. If like I hear jokes nowadays of our youth, if someone's acting dumb, it's, oh, do you have autism, and it doesn't even make sense, because autism is so intricate, and there's so many things. It's really just an umbrella term of how many things and quirks that we have. And so I think if there was an overall, not even if there was an overall understanding, if there was a want to overall understand, I think our world would be so much better with less outcasting and discrimination.
It's so true. It's very true. And with Tourette's, because like I'm just really learning from you, honestly. So with
Um,
Tourette's, is there's a spectrum, right?
no, not really. Tourette's,
Oh.
I mean, yes and no, yes and no, because Tourette's, it looks different on everybody. We like my twitches, like called ticks. We call those ticks. and everyone has different tics. So like I could be sitting here with someone who has Tourette syndrome, and we could not be doing the same thing at all, but still have the same sort of symptoms. Like I would be rolling my eyes uncontrollably, or jerking my neck, or doing stuff like that. But someone next to me could be going through a whole, physical, like their arms would be flailing, or they would be saying things out loud. And so it really impacts everybody different. And in everyone's case of severity is as well.
Okay. I'll be honest, I really am learning from you with that. Cause like I said, we also don't learn about disabilities in schools too.
Right.
We should learn, or at least just learn the basics of them, because you most likely will approach someone who has, Tourette's or autism
Yes.
or some other, disorder or disability within your life. We should learn at
Right.
least
Right.
some sort of basic between that. Me learning
Yes.
from you right now is kind of like, interesting. I'm like, oh,
Right.
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it really is up to us. It is up to us with the disabilities to want to really spread the knowledge onto the public, because as bad as being ignorant is, you also can't blame everybody because it's such a rare disability. When my mom was pregnant with me, she was like, who is Tourette's? you know? And so you can't just expect people to know. So it really is, that's part of Jalen's Challenge mission, to really spread awareness about autism and Tourette syndrome and other things such like that.
Oh, wait. Now I want to kind of get on this topic because it's kind of reminding me of like, okay, so with like Black Lives Matter was really, and I'm going to put up quotes, trending, because as far
Hmm.
as like when you see it on TikTok, things like
Right.
that is trending. But you know how like with Black Lives Matter, a lot of people who, weren't of the Black race, or, who weren't African American, um, they would be so like, oh, to their Black friend or to whoever is Black in their community, oh,
Mm.
okay, sit down and tell me everything there is to Black history,
Right.
Did
I
you
remember
ever
exactly.
find, huh?
Yeah, I was like, I remember exactly what you're talking about too. Like I noticed and I picked up on all of that in the topic.
Yeah. So I'm like, have you ever found yourself having to do that, but with like Tourette syndrome?
Yes and no. Again, sorry to give you another like midway answer, but it's true. Like personally, I have complete vocal and motor tics, but not everybody knows exactly like what those are. And while people are open to learning about it, I haven't quite been cornered and just been treated like a Wikipedia, which I'm thankful of. And I think that's mostly because I've taken the proactive step through Jalen's Challenge to spread awareness, and provided people with links, and we've had documentaries done. So we've kind of been pushing the information out there before anyone's really got a chance to ask, to be honest. Um, so
Mhm.
so I think, yeah, I haven't really been in a situation where I just had to kind of sit and dump, because that can be really exhausting.
Okay, yeah. Because just like looking at it from the perspective of someone who's had to, people have actually just kind of done that with me as far as like Black history, where they want me to sit down and explain to them everything there is about Black history. Keep in
Right.
mind,
Exhausting.
I went to a white school,
Right.
like,
Right. Like you don't just
so
have everything off the top of your brain. Right.
exactly. I like, of course, I would like to advocate and I'd like to, educate others, but I don't know everything there is. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Has Jaylen had to do that, but like with Tourette syndrome?
Yeah, no,
Or
that's a great question.
yeah, I feel like people don't, I feel like honestly, people don't think about that either.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting topic to really bring up to others. Like, what is the perspective of someone who does have Tourette's or who does have autism? How do they take on life and how do others really treat them? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. And that is,
So,
I feel like, oh, no, sorry,
oh,
go
no,
ahead.
no, no, you keep going, you keep
Oh,
going.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, like because I'm actually like really happy that at least someone does think about that in that way, because it's purely environmental. I say, if I were like earlier, like I said, at Southeastern, I feel totally accepted and loved for who I am. But there are so many people who don't get that same blessing, and that can cause them to live a completely different lifestyle, and to deal with their disabilities a completely different way than I do. So it is really, really important, like you said, to really just critical think, like how does someone with autism interact with the world, and how do people treat them? Because if you can, that's just step one. If you can get that in your head, that can cause you to look inwards and think about how you're actually treating that person and how to help them, move along.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And Jalen, what's been the most rewarding part of your journey?
So the most rewarding part of my journey, I would have to say, is just being able to hear feedback from kids that we visited and spoke to. And I know a lot of like most people expect, oh, the Diana Award or the World Children's Award, which are huge, accomplishments that are not accomplishments of my own. It's definitely from my team and my friends and my family and loved ones. But I just love hearing the personal stories from kids that because I like feeling like I am able to be related to. And so when these 69 kids who almost committed suicide tell me and reach out to us and feel comfortable enough to share their stories and be vulnerable with us, that just helps me know that I'm at least doing something right to spread the message of love and kindness, um, because that means that they want to take a step forward and healing from the trauma of the past, and that's all I really have.
And what's been the most challenging part of your journey?
Oh, so the most challenging part, that's a great question because like I just hinted at earlier, it really does take a village to run Jalen Challenge or any nonprofit. I'm sure you know. It really like if it were just up to you and me, we had everything, the logistics of it, we would drown in it like a pool. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely finding the support and the numbers to really back up our drive and our passion, because it really does take a lot of people of pure heart and pure kindness to want to help us make the world a better place.
What are your hopes and dreams for Jalen's Challenge and yourself moving forward?
Yes. The hopes and dreams I have for Jalen's Challenge Foundation, that would just have to be to just continue doing what we can and working with all the curveballs thrown at us and just doing the best that we can to make every single kid feel loved and cared about and to end as much bullying as we can, both in school and in the workplace.
What advice would you give to youth who are going through bullying?
Oh, so kids who are going through bullying right now, the number one thing I say is so kind of mainstream because they've heard it so many times, but it's please, please speak up, because we never advocate for kids fighting back physically, but we say to use your voice as a weapon because that's the strongest one you have. And it's so easy. Like when I was being bullied, it was so easy not saying something because the last thing I was going to do is defend myself, which is heartbreaking, because I hate seeing that in other kids because I see myself. And so if you're a kid going through bullying, or if you know someone that's being bullied, please don't be a bystander. Speak up. Go to your teacher, your parents, your school resource officer if it has to be that extreme. Because a lot of kids do feel like no one will listen to them. But I promise you, if you're relentless with it, the right consequences will be put in place, and your whole situation will be.
That's some really good advice, Jalen.
Thank you, thank you.
It really is so true. But my last question for you is where can people find you? So tell us your website and your social media.
Yes, yes. So you can contact us anytime or read about Jalen's Challenge at www.jalenschallenge.org. And then on all of my social medias, it's just Jalen's Challenge. And my DMs are open, our comments are open. So please reach out if you'd like.
Well, Jalen, you are a huge inspiration to all. Thank you for sharing with us how you race to speak up.
No, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I had so much fun.
Oh, yeah, this is a really good conversation. And thank you to all who are listening. I hope to see you guys at future Race to Speak Up podcasts. If you have any questions about the Race to Speak Up podcast, feel free to contact me at racetospeakup@gmail.com. Make sure to check out my website. It's www.racetospeakup.com. Make sure to follow at Race to Speak Up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for updates on future podcasts. And join the Humanity Rising movement. Humanity Rising offers scholarships for students making a difference in the world through service. Visit www.humanityrising.org for more information. And remember to ask yourself this question: how do you race to speak up?